Mental Health Mondays ignite the spark. Hope guides each step, even in the dark. New week, new dreams to see. Hope's the key to what's meant to be.
Good afternoon and welcome to Mental Health Mondays with Hope. I am Hope, and we appreciate you joining us on the PA Empowerment Network. If you have not subscribed to the PA Empowerment Network yet, please go ahead and hit that subscribe button.
Introduce him and talk.
Okay. Hey, Scott's here.
Hi.
So tonight we're going to talk with our friend Scott Reese, who is a psych nurse. And what we decided we're going to talk about tonight is something that's just going on. Everybody's talking about it. And we wanted to look at it from a different vantage point, from more of the psychological vantage. Personal opinions, these are backed up by education, knowledge, and theory. So before we get started, Scott, I know that you've been here before, but why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself and tell everybody a little bit about yourself if they didn't meet you before.
Hi. So yeah, Hope. I've been a psych nurse now for 6 years. Been in the field now for 16. Something that I have a passion for, and something that's always changing, always evolving, and it's something that affects everybody in our lives. So kind of, we have to be mindful and, examine each little thing that happens in our life. And that's kind of what I do throughout the course of my career and my my day-to-day life.
Right. And you help as a psych nurse, you help others learn those skills, your patients and what have you, along with the psych team, help your patients understand that about themselves as well. Correct.
Why do we think the way we do? Why do we act the way we act?
Right. So you actually approached me to discuss the death of Charlie Kirk, and I want to just let you roll with it, and let's get your thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, it's there's not very many times in history, and when this first happened, I remember thinking, people had said, what's the big deal? It's another breaking news event, another shooting, I mean, this was a lot more for a lot of people. This was a public execution, something that we've never really seen. I mean, I'm not old enough to remember JFK. I'm not old enough to remember even when the attempt on Ronald Reagan when he was actually shot. So, I mean, this was kind of the first time something like this happened, and it happened live. It was all over social media. Within 5 to 10 minutes, everybody in the world, had seen this. Billions of people had probably witnessed, a man who, shot live, It's pretty traumatic, and this is something that everyone dealt with differently, and unfortunately, not for the better, because a lot of people definitely went to the extremes on both sides of this, and I think that's definitely something that we need to talk about and we need to work through.
Yeah, definitely. And you and I were speaking late last week about PTSD.
Yes.
And, both of us feel that as a society, we all suffer some form or some level of PTSD from 9/11, and don't even necessarily recognize it.
Right.
If, you see the incidents of road rage have gone up tremendously, and the level of anger, it just in general has gone up tremendously since 9/11. And I mean, those are classic signs of PTSD. So do you feel that the powers that be, whether it's the medical community, the political community, do you feel that they are recognizing that, like you said, each political side is looking at this differently, but do you feel that they are looking at this in a viewpoint of mental health at all?
Not at all.
I mean, our mental health.
I don't think so at all. I think it was politicized from the very first second that this happened. I think as soon as it happened, we had to, we started hearing people from both sides. It got ugly really fast, and it became finger pointing. Let's catch let's catch the person. Let's blame this person. Let's blame that person. It got very out of hand very quickly.
Likes the interaction. Right. Oh, I am unmuted. Okay. Yeah. And I think that also, with everyone making those statements, they are also putting off dealing with what they just witnessed.
100%. I mean, it became less about the death of a person and more about what side are you on, or
right.
Are you celebrating this? Are you happy? Are you sad? I mean, everyone should have been sad. This is not something that should ever happen, and not something that anybody should witness. My children witnessed this, my kids.
Right.
And I had to think about that, and I had to have these conversations and to see what happened. What do you guys think? Tell me about it.
Right. And that just made me think back to the Challenger explosion, that, this was a teacher and a female going up on that ship, and all the classrooms were watching that. So, all of those children saw what happened to the Challenger as it exploded, and, that this is trauma, and we acknowledge the trauma. Then we somewhat acknowledge trauma from 9/11, but I don't feel it has been acknowledged to the extent of what we all as a society suffer from PTSD, from witnessing not just the attack on America and seeing the planes go into the buildings, but the playing it over and over again. And each time there was more and more detail that was provided. And you got to see a lot of very traumatic things to watch. And all in the name of making news. Now, is the video, if I don't know if is the video of the execution, is that still online? Is that still or did they take it down?
It's out there. It's hard to find.
Okay.
Thankfully, I mean, it's probably better that way.
I agree. And, and obviously for the family, it's better, and certainly for us as people. I mean, sure, people are going to be curious. There's nothing wrong with having a curious nature to actually, want to see that. I don't feel that there's anything wrong with that. And not everyone is going to be traumatized. And, some people might find that fascinating to watch, not fascinating that it happened, but fascinating to watch just because they are of a curious nature. And I feel that that's something that we have to also recognize, that everyone, is looking at this differently. But like you said, it should not be politicized, and it should be what it is, trauma.
The response to, I mean, so many people just, the anger, the outrage, the happiness, joy I've seen. I mean, I can't believe the different range of emotions, where, again, everyone should have come together and said, this is like a school shooting. Just because somebody has a message that you disagree with, that you don't like, does not mean you should hope that they get executed.
Right.
And my thoughts on this guy doesn't really matter. It really doesn't. I mean, I wouldn't want to see this happen to anybody, especially in front of, I mean, some people know this. I had friends that didn't know this, who were like, you know what, don't really like the guy. The world's probably better out that he's not here, whatever. His wife and his 2 kids were there, front row. They saw the whole thing happen. They were right there. I mean, that right there. And my friends, when they said that, they're like, I didn't know that. I'm like, well, that's something you need to consider before you jump to maybe he got what he deserved. I mean, that's not the right way to respond to that. And unfortunately, that is how a lot of people responded to that.
Right. And I said that I wanted to talk a little bit about dark psychology, and I feel that we have become a nation that has gone in this direction, or society, I'll just say society, that has gone in this direction, because we have become desensitized to things like this when they happen. And we have been polarized politically, and that drives us to react in one way or another. But it's our moral compass, and not everybody's moral compass is the same.
Not at all. And I mean, you know, you see in sports sometimes too, where people are like cheer for an injury or whatever. Like, you should never be doing that. You're watching a sport, the team that you're playing against, their guy gets hurt. You know, you should be considering that person as a family too.
Right. And I think, again, I think we've developed that as a society over time. We have developed that to where people do not think critically enough, or step back outside of their current situation enough to use logic. And well, again, I'm going to go back to, critical thinking skills to say, hey, is that the right way to respond? People respond out of anger. People respond out of frustration. And again, that also has built over time. And when as a people, or even a person, again, my show last week, we talked about like our levels, mastering our levels of development through growing up. But those levels of development, you can return to them, or you can return to the methods in which you get through them. If you feel that your basic needs are not being met, and now you're an adult, so you're not a child, you have ways to think about that. One of the ways to react is anger toward the people that you feel are not meeting your needs, whether that's society, whether it's your employer, or what have you. And until all people feel that their needs, that they're being heard, their needs are being met, I feel that anger is going to remain there. And you and I are in this field. What do we do?
You have to take a critical look at yourself too, because, I remember when it first happened, I'm like, okay, this guy inflamed an awful lot of people, and maybe somebody he inflamed decided to act. So I didn't have that initial, like, it wasn't like, oh, like somebody wonderful got shot. It was like, okay, well, but then I had to go back and listen to how other people were responding. And I'm like, wait a second here, like, people that I identify with that have a similar ideology to me are like cheering or celebrating. They're happy about this. It's like, you guys are, you're setting off the wrong image here. You're not portraying yourself the way that you want to be seen. You say you're a liberal or whatever. Well, it's not very liberal to cheer when the guy you don't like dies. Like, that's not how that works. It goes against your ideology. And then on the other hand, then you're going to have other people on the other side are going to say, well, wait a minute here. You're supposed to be the guys that don't act this way. And now you're going to act that way too. Well, maybe you are our enemy. Maybe we were right the whole time.
Right. And, again, I'm going to go back to dark psychology, and you don't have to be in the field to research, to research all of this. All I did was ask Siri today out of curiosity. I said, hey, Siri, who are the top world leaders that have utilized dark psychology for governing? And the first one was Hitler, and the second one was Joe McCarthy. And so if you think about it, there's a triad within dark psychology, and the first is narcissism, and the second is psychopathy. Yeah, and then the third is the behavior disorders, or I shouldn't say behavior disorders, but a disorder of behaviors, which is a maladaptive way of looking at things that happens over time. Like, this is who you are over time. And all of that dark psychology, ironically, and I listened to a podcast, an audiobook on this quite a while ago. The two main users, I guess if you want to call it that, of dark psychology are politicians and the media. And, it can be something as simple as we're getting the snowstorm of the century. And, we have all those funny memes running out for our milk and bread and eggs and what have you. And then it turns out to be a dusting. So it's what dark psychology does is it invokes a fear in people. And it uses our fears also against us. It possibly creates a fear that was never there, or uses our fears against us. A fear of not being able to get out to get our food, not being able to, have heat or what have you. And that's just this very, very simple form, of that type of psychology. And it's very, very fear-based. And when it's used in governing, it's very, very specifically meant to divide people.
Aren't we polarized enough as it is?
And I feel that this could be a turning point
100%.
if people recognized that you are psychologically, you have been made a pawn. No matter which side you're on, no matter what your belief system is, you have been made a pawn through someone else's psychological misuse of you, of your thoughts, of your trusts, of your fears. And I do not speak ill of the dead. And this, like you said, it was terrible and it should never have happened. But, some of the things that Mr. Kirk spoke about were things that we have created fear about, the fear of the unknown, whether it's, people of color, whether it's transgender people, women but the thing is, again, if we go back to our critical thinking skills, some of those things can all be we can look at them and they're all not accurate, because there was a black female judge who he had stated got her job specifically because she was Black through DEI. And if you look at the studies, you look at the research, that the majority of the people who benefit from DEI are white women.
Right.
So it's creating fear that, oh my gosh, we're going to lose our job potential. I won't be able to raise my family and what have you. And it's fear mongering, and it's dividing. And he did that in life, and now his death is doing that as well. Again, it was a horrible, horrible thing that happened. It should have never happened, because we should have the freedom to be who we are and say what we want to say. There were some things when I listened to him, I'm like, yeah, okay. But whether you disagree or agree, again, like you said, everyone is entitled to their opinion. But he was also part of that triad of that, the use of dark psychology to
he did a lot to hurt a lot of people, which is why I think so many people responded with happiness whenever they found out that, like how many people were celebrating, or how many people were sad when OJ passed away. Like, not a lot of people were thrilled about that, because they think of OJ as that monster that hurt people. So of course that
right.
was the response. Now everyone universally disliked OJ. The difference on this being a lot of people related to the message of this guy. I thought one of the things that was most psychologically that I thought was most interesting was Dean Withers, the guy that I follow, who was basically the liberal Charlie Kirk. He was one of the first people that went on the air. He was on the air when it happened, actually, that went on and said, I condemn this wholeheartedly. He cried on the air. And he said, and I know why he felt the way he did. Because you know what? He could be next. And he knows that. And he understands that this guy did die for his words, most likely. It really seems that way. It really seems likely. And he could be under the same, and not that he was only thinking about himself, but he gets it in a way that other people didn't get it. He understands as a content creator, someone that does debate people for a living, that this guy did the same thing. And somebody on one side or the other, which it's certainly looking, unfortunately, I mean, as bad as it looks like, it may have been somebody that may have even aligned politically with him.
Right. Right. And again, so I think where we're at right now is everything comes down to politics. It's an us versus them. You're either a Republican or a Democrat, and the two shall not meet in the middle. And it's ridiculous. It's absolutely absurd. I have a very unpopular belief within my party that says we should get rid of the party system and everybody run for political office on their merits.
I totally agree.
I mean, I know
it doesn't make sense to stand for something you don't believe in just because you have to stand for that in order to make somebody else happy.
Right.
You're making deals with the devil.
Right. Right. And it's so easy, again, if we don't use our critical thinking skills, it's so easy to just look at every situation as that's a singular situation, but it really is a mounting of all types of things that have brought us to where we are with the execution of Charlie Kirk.
This was going to happen sooner or later to somebody somewhere. That is the charged climate we live in right now.
Right.
We saw this during January 6th. People here, I'm getting tired of hearing this whole conversation, this whole words don't matter thing. Words shouldn't, they do. Sticks and stones, our parents taught us that. It's not true.
Right.
We
You're right.
saw that in Columbine. We saw that January 6th. We saw that, everywhere. You see that all over the place in school shootings all over the country. Words hurt. We see that in suicides. Things that people say have consequences, and those things that affects people, and that leads to real terrible, traumatic, horrible things. And if we don't get past that idea, we're never going to get better.
Right. And we're living in an age also where, it's not just you get into an argument or even a fight on the school, playground. Now it's cyber, now it's somebody took a video of you and puts it up on the internet. And now you have, possibly millions of people that are seeing your embarrassing moment or whatever that is that they want to put up there.
People are getting fired today. People have been fired because they had a response. Not even that they necessarily did anything wrong, that they said something along the lines of, well, maybe he deserved it. Or maybe this was an FAFO situation.
Right.
And people lost their jobs for this.
Right.
That's crazy.
Right. Everything is very politically charged, and we are charged, but if it's very politically charged, and we as individuals and we as communities and let's look at our circles of influence. It starts with us, and then it's our families, and then it's our extended families, and then it's the church, the sports leagues, the civic organizations, our larger community, our county, our state, our country, and we are part of each one of those individual communities. They are all communities. They are all our circles of influence.
And the echo chamber is so loud now because everything is, like you said before, everything's social now. So everything that you say, you can't make a comment that 100 people don't hear, 1,000 people don't hear. Every little thing now is like back in the day. If you were going to bully somebody, you had to go to their house, you had to find them in the street, you had to meet them in school, and you had to bully them or call somebody and have them bullied. No, now you could bully somebody with the touch of your fingers.
You can bully someone you've never met.
People. What's that?
You could bully someone you've never met.
That you've never seen before. You could do it with one of these. You could do it with a keyboard. You could do it with your phone. I mean, there's so many different ways to use your words and weaponize them and inflame people to the point of doing these terrible things. And that we're at the point now where people are almost expecting this. School shooting happened the same day Kirk died. Didn't hear much about it, except for hearing people talk about how nobody was talking about it. That's insane. People were talking about not talking about the shooting because another person got shot There was a
Right.
higher profile shooting. It's wild to see how words have turned this country into what it is right now. It's not the country that you and I grew up in. It's not the same anymore. And you know, the psychology now is so different. It doesn't take much to influence people. Like the ability to manipulate now is so simple. We have given up all of our power to TikTok, to Facebook. I mean, we literally have given it up. We literally agree to let them market us, to let them target us. Facebook lost a lawsuit a couple of years ago saying that they intentionally had algorithms set up to send you political things that you disagreed with to upset you so you would engage. It's engagement farming. And they want you to get mad and argue with each other because they're profiting off of it. And we're all losing in the long run. I mean, corporations are making off with money on this. We're losing. We're losing
Absolutely.
family, we're losing friends.
And I think you always follow the money trail. I mean, always follow the money trail. And that's your answer.
It's just so crazy to me now. Like I said, that it's just so easy to fool anybody now. I just saw something on TV today where they're gonna release it's not even a study. They're gonna say the Tylenol in pregnant women caused autism. There's no proof of this at all. In fact, there's proof against this. But this is going to get released, and people are going to believe it because it's going to get released from the White House. It's going to get released as a fact. It doesn't have to be proven anymore. You don't even have to give the truth anymore. You just have to say something.
Right.
You know, Charlie Kirk just has to make an argument, and someone's going to believe him because you know what? He talks fast. He was a good-looking guy. Sounded like he was real smart. So he must be, whatever he's saying must be right? Because he sounds like it. He looks the part. He sounds the part. Division is so easy now, and they've made it so much more difficult. And like the ability to traumatize entire groups of people are so much easier now. Like 9/11, can you imagine if 9/11 happened today? There would be 10,000 cameras that would have broadcast what happened from every possible angle.
Right.
It's insane.
Yeah, less hands digging in the rubble and more cameras videoing it all.
100%.
Yeah. And you know, as I was thinking about what we're going to be discussing today, you know, one of the things that you know, a lot of people say is you know, people don't go to church anymore. Like they don't have their values, their Christian values or what have you. And I'm just using Christian as an example.
Sure.
But, you know, I thought about that, and we have more and more churches now that are speaking out politically and taking sides in politics. And that's just not, I mean, I believe in that whole separation of church and state. And, you know, I don't know what's happening there.
250 years ago, Thomas Jefferson knew that was a bad idea. George Washington knew that was a bad idea. They knew it, and they were Quakers. These guys were hardcore Christians, like the Old Testament, the hardcore Christians. And they even said that you need to separate what you believe from what is best for everybody, because what you believe may not necessarily be what's best for everybody else.
Right.
You know, unfortunately, you're right. People are losing those traditional outlets, and they're picking up newer ones. You know, and not necessarily for the best.
Right. I know you said earlier about the gentleman the podcast that you watch, and how, you know, he feels that he could potentially be a target, and it made me think of all of our Black brothers and sisters, how they have that target on their back all the time. And I read an article this morning about a gentleman who won a lawsuit for racial discrimination, and I want to say it was in real estate, and I apologize, I don't remember it 100%. And then he had the settlement checks, and he took them to the bank along with the letter from the attorney with the court papers and what have you, and they wouldn't let him deposit them. They called the police. So here he had everything he needed to deposit these checks, and they called the police. And then there are people that are commenting on this saying, well, it's common for a bank to question large deposits, but there are checks and balances there. There are internal. First thing you would do is call the bank that the check is drawn on. You wouldn't call the police. And so this is something that you and I, as white people, don't have to deal with at all. We've never had to tell our children how to behave, if they were pulled over by the police.
Dashboard. I've had experiences where I learned this, this whole thing, everything that you're saying right now stems back to a general lack of ability to not only empathize, but to put yourself in the shoes of somebody else that isn't you. And I mean, this is a problem. This is everywhere. You see this in every. Your example of the police, that's a perfect one. I used to get pulled over frequently when I was younger. I was young and dumb. I did stupid things. The local cops knew me, and they knew that I was usually doing dumb things, so they would pull me over quite frequently. I would get into arguments with them. I would reach into my glove box and grab my license and registration so I'd have it ready the second they got there, because I wanted to get this interaction over as soon as I could. I never thought about getting shot. A friend of mine I talked to, good friend of mine, his name is Spiffy McDonald, Javante McDonald is his real name. He once told me, I got pulled over 6 times in my life. All 6 times I was taken out of the car.
Yeah.
I was like, are you kidding me? Like, are you seriously? Are you telling me? I'm like, did that really happen? Because I've been pulled over 50 times, and I've been pulled out of a car never. So I'm like, that was a whole different experience to me. Like, talking to women when they talk about why women will ghost men on the internet. Well, because it's more scary than to tell men no, than to reject a man saying that I don't want to talk to you. Because then the threats come, then the anger comes, then the vitriol comes. If you just ghost the person, maybe the person goes away. Understanding what it's like. I used to work with illegal immigrants at a restaurant once, where these people were not, they were legitimately not from America. They were not documented. Nicest people I ever met in my life. These people were not hardened criminals. In fact, these people didn't break the law because they were afraid if they did, they'd get deported. And the rate of crime by illegal immigrants is significantly lower than the rate of crime among the general population. Right. It's just like people they always talk about testing people on welfare, test them for drugs. The reality is Chicago did this years back, and what they found out was only 2% of people on welfare use drugs, where 7% of the general population use drugs. And it cost more money to test people and kick them off than it. So people just don't understand the other person. They don't understand what it's like to be a minority, to be a woman, to be transgender, to be gay. And if you don't understand that, you need to stop listening to people that also don't understand that and are getting you mad about it. Like, how many times have you heard someone complain about a transgendered bathroom? I've been in family bathrooms before. There's nothing creepy about them.
Right.
If you think about something that simple, it's so dumb, right? So if you allow all bathrooms to be open to anybody that wants to go into that bathroom, what's the difference right now? If I wanted to dress like a woman and go into a woman's bathroom and do something terrible to a woman, I can already do that. Right. I can do that now. I have that ability. If I'm so dedicated that I'm going to put a wig on, I can do that now. You're not going to change that by saying that it's not allowed. You can't, but you are going to make someone that maybe feels more comfortable in that bathroom feel terrible because they have to go into a different bathroom looking like a woman Like how no one thinks about that. No
Right.
one thinks about I mean, that's just, it's just, if you don't walk in someone else's shoes, you can't possibly understand. And then you really can't make judgments like that. You at least need to understand that you don't understand. And that's where we're not there at all.
Right. And again, I'm going back to the dark psychology. It is a way to manipulate and divide us and strike fear. And, I feel the first step is recognizing it. We all recognize it. We're all suckers.
Yep.
I mean, we've all been manipulated, no matter
100%.
if your political views, if your person's in office or your person's not in office. The person in office is manipulating you, whether you agree with them or disagree with them. And it's
100%.
happening all the way around. And
There's
we're
almost
the only
nobody-
ones that can stop that. We have to recognize it.
Right. Unless you're talking local level, and I know you've ran for local office yourself, almost nobody is going to relate to you. Generally speaking, most of these people, especially if they're old grays, they're not going to relate to you. They don't know who you are. They have no
Right.
idea what it's like to be poor. They don't care either. They really don't. The idea that I remember when Elon Musk was ripping through all these departments and firing people left and right, and everyone's talking about how he's trying to do this, do that. It's like, do you think Elon Musk cares about you as a person? Do you think he cares about any single one of us and wants to help us? Or is he doing something to help himself, ripping these companies apart that maybe he can benefit from by going in there with his company? Cut the National Weather Service so you can install SpaceX.
Right.
I mean, it's not too difficult to see, like you said, follow the money trail.
Follow the money trail. And I'm not a cynic. I'm not a cynical person. And I'm not being cynical when I say this. I'm being logical. I'm using my critical thinking skills.
Yeah.
I'm a social worker, and I'm a Pisces. So people automatically assume that I am this, this fluffy, rose-colored glasses kind of gal. And, we need to use our critical thinking skills, and we all have them. And it's not an opinion.
Here's a good
What's
one
that?
for you. Hope whenever I think about this, we're obviously white, but we're old enough to remember the early 90s. Now, we didn't live in Los Angeles, or we didn't live anywhere out in the West Coast or even the East Coast, because this was a big issue. But a lot of people remember what happened after Rodney King. A lot of people remember what happened when influential rappers were being murdered. This could very well trigger the same type of mechanism if this is allowed to happen. If this happen, if tomorrow, Dean Withers, for example, or Jon Stewart, or Stephen Colbert, or any one of these influential liberals, they get assassinated, or they get shot, or they get killed, this is going to trigger something that we don't want to deal with. This could get as bad, and the civil unrest was bad in LA. It was bad.
Right.
I mean, it got really ugly, really fast. And if anyone is too young to remember that, if you're old enough to remember that, you need to watch some documentaries on how bad it got. I mean, burning the city bad, like National Guard fighting people. I don't even know how many people died. It was unbelievable. Right. We lost two of the greatest rappers of all time. I mean, this got out of hand real fast. And the same, as you said, dark psychology can happen here now. Because you know what? I guarantee you there's people out there that really, really love, I've read their posts. They really loved Charlie Kirk.
Absolutely.
They really thought that this man was a visionary. I have heard him compared by some people, they're Martin Luther King. Now, I can disagree with that to the ends of this earth for various reasons, but the point is, that's what they think. That is what they believe. And what they believe is their reality. And in their reality, somebody just killed somebody who was very influential and a hero to them. And, if you disagree with Kirk, which again, obviously I'm not a Kirk supporter. I did not agree with anything that he ever said, but like the idea that he's a dead martyr now is significantly worse than any message he ever could have got across in life.
Right.
Because people are going to take that message now and run with it. Well, they killed this guy for saying words.
Right. Right. And I mean, we're seeing the censorship, but I feel like, I know you said that, if we have another execution of a liberal, outspoken liberal, I feel that we may already be headed toward that type of a situation, because, we're having a National Day of Recognition for Charlie Kirk, and it is planned for October 14th. October 14th is George Floyd's birthday. You cannot tell me. I'm sorry. We have been created to be a conspiracy society. But if I am not even looking at conspiracies, I'm looking at the dark psychology that has been used with this administration to govern. And so if we look at that, striking fear into people, if we look at that, separating people, and us versus them.
Yeah, don't be stupid. Like
choosing
how
October 14th was very specific.
Like literally, how dumb can you be? You can't let them trick you that easily. That is insane. That is so blatant. That's so obvious. You know what blows my mind too? Like, I didn't hear. I don't think the flags went to half mast when Melissa Hortman was killed and her husband. I don't think it happened when Gabby Gifford was shot and almost killed. I don't think it happened when obviously Pelosi's husband survived. There was an attempted attack on Shapiro. Like, all of these things were barely footnotes. And this guy was legitimately not even a politician, not even an elected official. The hero worship, there has to be a point where, we condemn this as a society. We all need to. Everyone needs to agree on that. Everyone, no, let's get them back. No, buy more guns. No, this should not be how we live our lives. It doesn't work that way, and we're not going to make it. I was really, my second biggest PTSD in my life after 9/11 was definitely January 6th, because it was the first time I felt, after 9/11 in my country, I felt completely unsafe. Like, if people are so emboldened by words, again, words, we're back to words. You can argue that Trump said what he said and didn't tell people to march and no, he didn't. And neither did anybody else. I forget the Texas was it? I don't remember if it was Abbott, whoever else was speaking that day. They got the crowd all riled up. That eventually bum rushed the Capitol. Again, this was all words again, and these people did some crazy things because of words, and that terrified me. Again, that was the second scariest thing that I'd seen happen, because I honestly didn't think we'd see an attempted coup on our country, and that's what we saw. You literally saw people that were willing to hang the vice president. They said it. They were willing to kill members of Congress. They couldn't find them. Like, that's what crazy.
And people died protecting the location of the members of Congress.
And someone died that was climbing through the window. And and there were people that had suicides afterwards because they were so traumatized by not being able to do more, or because of what happened, and they felt like they failed the country. It's unbelievable to think about. But so you had that, and then when this happened, this would be my number 3, because someone brought up the Archduke Franz Ferdinand analogy once, and that's a good one, because looking back in history, that wasn't necessarily a major thing. But it led to a major thing.
Mm-hmm.
The first shots at Lexington they probably weren't even at anybody. They were probably shot in the air, and it led to the Revolutionary War. That is how it happens sometimes.
Right. And I mean, this is how things happen on a small scale. So why wouldn't it happen on a larger scale? Because, I love watching all these police shows, like the real police shows. And so many times, a young person who shouldn't be carrying a gun anyway, because they're not legal,
Right.
Assumes that somebody is firing at them, or they hear a noise and they think it's a shot, so they turn and they shoot. And it's a reaction. It becomes a reactionary situation. Life evolves, things evolve, and we are this cyber age now. And I'm older than you, and when I was in school, the boys still had the hunting rifles in the back of their pickup trucks. And the biggest thing that I was afraid of is if I got caught skipping school. And now, there are young people. I always remember this one young lady who now is, I don't know if she's a sophomore or junior in college, so I apologize. Pretty much had a mental breakdown during high school. And some of that was triggered by all of the school shootings. And when this individual heard a loud bang, immediately became traumatized and felt that there was the potential that there was a shooter in this individual's school. And so, things do change, not necessarily for the better. And we can't be that society, because, we're the older ones now that says, well, in my day, yeah, it was like that in my day, but we have to recognize how it is today. The Constitution was meant to be a living, breathing document. So, it can't remain the same. I'm not anti-Second Amendment, so don't get me wrong. I don't want anybody to think that. But they were shooting muskets and cannons back then. So we do have to, we have to move everything with the times. And I don't remember if it was you and I talking, or I was talking to somebody else about gun laws, and this was a very pro-gun person, which I also am, stating that everything changes state by state, and there aren't enough checks and balances. And and this was a logical person using critical thinking skills. Yet then when we bring it to the political arena, it becomes the us versus them in the political arena, therefore making it the us versus them, in the public sector. And we can't even get the pro-gun people to come to the table and have a discussion about it. It's an automatic, you're going to take our guns away. And that's not what it's all about. And I hate to say this, because all the division is coming from our politicians. It's coming from our political parties. And the only way we're going to start getting better is if people lead by example. I know we're not giving our personal opinions, but we're observations. Our PA House is Democratic. Our PA Senate is Republican. The PA House passes bills that then go to the Senate, and they sit there, and the Senate does nothing with them. And there have been some great bills that have gone to the Senate that are sitting there because it's an us versus them. But what they're forgetting is that there are people out there every day who are being affected by their lack of motion with either enacting these laws or retracting these laws or what have you. And it's the people that are being affected by this. And the people are getting more and more angry. And instead of placing the blame where it should lie, we have been groomed to place it toward each other. I'm going to use the term groomed because we really have been groomed.
Divide and conquer really is the best strategy. I know everyone uses the Nazi example against the other side forever. They've done this for as long as I've been alive. But when you really think about it, how does propaganda work? It works by convincing somebody else of something that's not true about somebody else. That's the whole idea of it. Coca-Cola tastes better because, you know, the Sega Genesis was better because of blast processing. And like there's always some reason, and you're seeing this to the extent now. It is just outrageous. You can't. There's no discourse anymore, like none. It got bad. It got better for a little while, and it is just completely gone in this country. Honestly, my biggest fear, my biggest concern is civil unrest, because we've seen it now. You saw it after George Floyd. We saw it in Baltimore. We saw it in Ferguson, Portland. We're seeing it now in Chicago. We're like, this is a problem, and I mean we cannot handle. We can't handle a Charlie Kirk situation happening every week.
Right.
We can't handle this happen. These types of things are happening more and more. You're seeing more and more mass shootings. More and more, like, people just don't. There is no more working out problems anymore. And unfortunately, guys, if you want a country that your kids are going to grow up in, that's going to even resemble, like, I mean, we're at a turning point at this point. I think we're at a tipping point. I think if we don't see something change very soon, we're going to tip over that edge. And now, with what we're seeing with the censorship in the last several months, I mean, it's one thing to cancel somebody because they did something terrible. Chris Brown beating Rihanna. Okay, maybe we shouldn't buy Chris Brown records, but to cancel somebody because they said something you didn't like about somebody else, that is insane.
Right.
That is Nazi level propaganda. That is,
Mm-hmm.
and that gets legitimately scary. And that's kind of where we're at right now. Although I did hear today, I believe Disney is walking back their stance.
Okay. That would be.
Yeah, I read that. Of course, the only reason they're doing it is because they're losing subscribers.
Follow the money. Follow the money.
They're behaving is because people are boycotting them. But,
Right.
But if that's what we have to do to get back to a level of normalcy, then maybe that's what we need to do.
Right. But they're not doing it because they believe in it. They're doing it because they're losing money.
Yep.
Follow the money trail. So, a conversation with world-renowned sociologists pertaining to the United States, and this is actually going back probably 4 or 5 years ago now, said that the United States has not hit rock bottom, and that we were still spiraling, and that the United States would not hit rock bottom until there was a war on American soil, which could very well be a civil war. Now, this was prior to all this. This was, again, it is using your knowledge of the leadership, how leadership is done, what has happened in history. We are still a very young country, when we look at the rest of the world. And we are spiraling terribly. And everything that you and I are talking about tonight, you called it civil unrest, could end up being a civil war. Then what?
That's my biggest concern, because you don't undo that. You can't go back. No one's going to put the guns down if that starts, and You're not going to be able to trust anybody if that starts. And that's
right.
You can't close that box once you've opened it. Right. Unfortunately, that's where I don't want us to wind up going.
Right.
And I mean, you already have a situation where our current president refused to peacefully transfer power the first time he lost. Now talking about another term, which we've already decided this is not a good idea. We should not have kings. We should not do this. The the wording, again, the actions, the behaviors that we're seeing now are getting scarier because they're getting more and more serious now. Now it's not, it's not like it was when we were growing up, but when, a Democrat, a Republican, a Democrat, and they peacefully transfer back and forth. Now it's to the point where there's, I've heard the president call every person imaginable our enemy. Liberals, anyone that disagree with Charlie Kirk,
Right.
immigrant. It's, you can't demonize so many people and have the people that you follow hear those words and say, oh, okay, that's what he said. You know what? I think I agree with him because he's my guy.
Right.
Scary what words can do. People are not, you would think people think on their own accord, but they really do kind of fall in line with leadership.
Right. Right. And I know that we throw around this term, narcissist so much lately that, it loses some of its value. And I think things like that happen for a reason, because it does, when we make it a common terminology, it does lose its value and lose its sharpness. And I had one person say to me at one point in time that, anyone to be successful has to have some degree of narcissism. And I disagree, because narcissism is a negative term. To be a go-getter and to, be forward is not narcissistic. And, currently our government is very narcissistic. Our president exemplifies the DSM definition of narcissism. And and even Charlie Kirk said that, he thought that empathy was a new age made up term. And the thing is, who is going to suffer if we have this civil unrest that turns into civil war? The president will go into a bunker. All of these rich people will go into their hiding places, and whatever they have, they'll be guarded by by security forces. And it's us living out the movie The Purge.
Since the 70s, I think the top 1% owned 18% of all the wealth in this country. And in the last 30 years, I think we're now up to, I think we've crossed over 50%. So 50% of all the wealth in this country belongs to the 1%. So like you said, it's not going to be them when things go bad. It's not going to be them if the sea levels rise. It's not going to be them if the hurricanes strike. It's not going to be them if we undergo civil war. They've got this all figured out. They have entire underground cities built currently. They have condos. You can buy them. Right. They're $1 billion or whatever, but you can buy them. But they have it figured out. We're the ones that are going to suffer because we're fighting with each other because they told us to. Right. Don't be so stupid to let them tell us to fight because they want us to. They for their own benefit.
So yeah, you're right. I agree 100%. And as much as we could talk about this forever, we have about a minute or so left. So is there a thought that you would like to leave us with? And we can, talk about these things again. I definitely want to talk about the 9/11 PTSD at some point. What's one thought that you would like to leave us with in your expertise?
I want to see everybody condemn violence in general against your enemy, against your friend, against somebody you don't like. You need to start having conversations. You need to stop and think about somebody else. Put yourself in their shoes or listen to what they have to say, because you don't know what you think you know. Right.
I agree. And follow the money trail. Well, thank you, Scott Reese, Psych RN. I love you too, buddy. And, you're going to be back. You're going to probably be sitting next to me at some point in time, and we'll be doing this together. Thank you for joining us again, Mental Health Mondays with Hope. And please check us out on our YouTube channel, the PA Empowerment Network, and go ahead and hit that like button, but more importantly, hit that subscribe button. Thank you so much for joining us. Have a great week. See you next Monday.